Yes. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the dumpster fire bollocks the Trump administration is up to. Let's all have a barrel of laughs. Now, this story is apparently quite serious. Well, I say quite serious if you happen to believe any of it. Fortunately, I do not. I think it's all a pile of wank, frankly. The whole thing reeks of sketchy as all hell, though it does prove one thing. Anything you see in the news cycle is there to get rinsed and forgotten. You ever see Men in Black? Recall that flashing gadget that used to wipe people's memories? Yeah, imagine that, but instead of erasing memories, it promotes failure to give a fuck. That is in essence the function of the news cycle in the modern-day regime. Pretty sure I wrote a piece on Substack some years ago about how technology and the news cycle is essentially accelerating cognitive impairment, or at the very least utterly decimating attention spans. There's a reason why everyone who consumes shorts are borderline schizophrenic and act like they're on coke, but anyway, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here. So the story we have over here is a bunch of top-level US officials, including Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and I imagine a few others, were communicating on a signal group, which essentially is a more encrypted version of WhatsApp, as far as I'm aware, where they were discussing apparently military ops, including bombing the Houthis. And the National Security Advisor, a one Mike Waltz, I believe, somehow managed to accidentally add the editor of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, onto this group. Not exactly a Trump-friendly publication, The Atlantic, now is it? And that's putting it mildly. That is essentially the TLDR synopsis. Now, from here on in, absolutely nothing we are told makes any kind of sense at all. A whole bunch of questions come to mind. Primarily, why the hell does Waltz have a shitlib journalist number on his phone? And how does one accidentally add someone like that to a group openly discussing rather destructive US foreign policy? Bollocks. Either this is a level of incompetence that is borderline comical, which obviously does not make the administration appear all that functional, or there's some nefarious shenanigans going on behind the scenes. Whatever way you want to look at it, one thing comes to mind. The level of coordination and bullshittery behind the scenes is far out of the grasp of the chief executive, and that is if you're assuming he's his own man. I'll elaborate why in a bit. Considering Trump's love affair and desperate desire to keep kissing the ass of a certain gimp several thousand miles east of the United States, anyone who thinks Trump is his own man is a pathetic lackey whose sycophancy demands a medical intervention. As far as what is the intersecting alignment between the shitlib journalist and the administration's national security advisor is concerned, Mr. Greenwald is rather helpful. It is because Jeffrey Goldberg and Mike Waltz have the exact same foreign policy mindset and always have. I do believe Mike Waltz also served under Rumsfeld as a policy advisor during the Bush years and became a multi-millionaire through a defense contracting firm called Meta Solutions he made in 2010, particularly active in Afghanistan, amassing about $930 million worth of government contracts in under a decade, according to The Intercept. Your tax dollars at work, people. To say he reeks of the neocon variety would be the understatement of the century. I mean, if you served under Rumsfeld, you dealt in blood. Let's not mince words over here. Does anyone remember when Trump was sold as having a more isolationist foreign policy? These are not exactly the kinds of people that are pro-that mentality. Waltz is no fan of Iran, is pro-you-know-who, and guess who else is a fan of you-know-who? I mean, his surname is Goldberg. I imagine I don't need to draw you a freaking picture here, do I? As is the case with damn near anything involving politics, especially if you do a bit of a noticing, is who is shagging who? Go look up Waltz's wife and her past affiliations, assuming they're true. A neocon and a globalist. Geez, what great company you choose to keep, Trump. I wonder who you're beholden to. And according to Goldberg himself, he was added as a contact from Waltz 2 days before he was brought into the Signal messaging group. Within a 48-hour period, Goldberg was added to one named Houthi PC small group. No contact with Goldberg before he was added to the small group. I don't know if that's a deliberate omission or it never happened, or if he's talking bollocks, not exactly a credible journalist, but anyway. Assuming that this is true, no one is buying the accidental part. I mean, if they did in the first place, safe to say they shouldn't be engaging with politics, the words gullible git should be perma-inked onto their foreheads. If that was all accidental and Waltz is just this bumbling moron, well, he wouldn't be the first. It appears the Waltz line is politically brain damaged, maybe keep them the hell out of any public engagement. But anyway, some more questions. Why on earth were these rank amateurs discussing US military policy on a commercial app and not something designed by the CIA or some other department of US security? A fair question, one would think, no, but it keeps getting stranger. As Judge Andrew Napolitano and Max Blumenthal pointed out, Goldberg, thanks to the Pentagon Papers case, is permitted to publish everything he saw in that thread. And yet strangely he chose not to. Why? I mean, aside from troop movements and potential harm to US military personnel, however, he published the scoop after the attacks happened. It couldn't possibly be because the attacks favor an allegiance he has. No, not at all. The whole focus has been dragged away from the illegal bombing of civilians, which no one seems to care about, I wonder why, and manufactured more into concerns of an incompetent security leak. Again, why? Maybe because that story fits better with his brand of pompous liberal wankers. Frankly, everyone's reaction to this whole scenario has been nothing short of bizarre. I mean, listen to Pete Hegseth.
One question.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used?
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
Right,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's rather ironic he tries to discredit the story by trying to discredit the journalist. The problem with this, though, as Goldberg himself pointed out, is he got wind of the attacks before they happened and only published the scoop after, hence how he knew the group was legit. No one has denied the authenticity of the leak, so Pete just looks like a fucking idiot. This was such a politician's answer as well. Absolute bollocks, word salad arsed wank that is. And what he wrote there was to play off the ignorance of the American public, blame the previous guy as a means to sell the attack. He's an arsehole, simple as. Then of course we have the likes of Tulsi Gabbard getting dragged through Congress here.
Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not, are you denying, Matt, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat?
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security
Because
Council.
It's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now. Tweeted just 11 days ago, and I'm quoting you. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. So if this information is classified, what are you going to do?
Senator, 2 points here. First of all, there's a difference between inadvertent release versus
careless and sloppy,
malicious leaks of classified information. The second point is there was no classified information that was on
the
information.
This committee should get that information. Director
and the
Patel,
National Security
Director
Council
Patel, my time's about out, and I'm going to use my 12 seconds that the chairman gave me. Director Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night, this morning. I don't have an update.
That is nothing short of embarrassing. Not that any of this matters in the grand scheme of things. Anything you see in a hearing like this is just theater. It's the American version of England's government inquiry. No one is held to account, not now, not ever, and fuck all happens. Case in point, Mike Wassel has his fucking job. Professor Mearsheimer, Larry Johnson, as well as Ray McGovern pointed this all out. There is a fundamental rot in the American system. It is simply an immoral, unaccountable empire that kills at will. The targets weren't even military, they were civilian. Again, bollocks. Where I think it does get interesting, though, is something that Academic Agent pointed out. Although keep in mind, there is no way of assessing the shit show as a play without it contradicting some other parts. Hell, for all we know, they are just a bunch of amateur plebs, but anyway, who knows? As a pro wrestling fan, you can smell bullshit when you see it. and the person they've been keeping in the limelight in this bright and shiny manner is J.D. Vance. Now, several exchanges have taken place, the now infamous bit with Zelensky at the White House, the totally not meant to be a hot mic moment with the Speaker of the House Johnson, and now this, where he looks like the only person with a somewhat sane foreign policy perspective, although that really isn't saying much. As AA pointed out, Trump is Hogan and Vance is Ultimate Warrior, and Vince wants to push Warrior, but he doesn't have that factor that Hogan has, and so Vance has all of these artificial boostings. He's being groomed to be the successor to Trump, the continuation of the Thiel dynasty essentially. But following the Zelensky debacle at the White House, there were some speculations as to the narrative being set up, and one of them was from a gentleman by the name of Brian Berletic from the New Atlantis. And his view, and I'm coloring some of my own flavor with this as well, so keep that in mind, was that there's essentially no difference in foreign policy from the last administration to the next. Trump has this massive ego, and he failed to negotiate the end of the war as he bragged about on the campaign trail. Russia has won, and America has lost. Naturally, one thing Trump hates is to look like a loser. So the play was to antagonize Zelensky, disgrace him in the eyes of the American public, and America can wash their hands of him and get the fuck out of Dodge and focus on China. And most importantly, America plays Europe, who is now forced to rearm and handle their own defenses, which is what America wanted all along, apparently. I do agree with AA that there is a very strong anti-European sentiment coming from America at the moment, as Harry Robertson points out here. If these messages are real, it demonstrates a pretty sickening yet unsurprising attitude towards Europe from the current US admin. The US went out of its way to destroy the old world powers and turn them into vassals and now hates them for not being grateful. Europe can only be strong when it is free of US influence. Amen to that last part, let's bring back the Kaiser. However, Vance is meant to look good for the American electorate. Yet as a European myself, I consider him to be a colossal wanker. To suggest Europeans are the freeloaders plays only the most ignorant of plebs. Anyone with sense knows a foreign nation's military base on your soil is not done out of the kindness of their hearts, it's occupation. NATO was the tentacles by which America controls its European vassal states. You bitch that Europe needs to be bailed out, yet this illegal expedition is done on behalf of Europe. How the fuck does Europe benefit from the bombing of the Houthis? Everyone knows on whose behalf the bombing was done, and it sure as shit wasn't Europe. The biggest threat to Europe is coordinating NGOs and unmitigated foreign hordes. Has any American military intervention ever been utilized to stop any of that? No. So what the hell is America supposed to defend Europe from then anyway? Oh yeah, because we're going to see Russian tanks cruising through Europe any day now. Uncle Sam can shove it up his ass and piss off. Cheers for watching. Once again, I apologize for nothing.